Tuque, princeps milite celestis, Satana maliosque spiritus malignos, via perditione animarum, pervagantur in mundo divina virtute.
Blessed be the holy and undivided Trinity, now and forevermore. Peace be with you, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 20 of Tenconi Talks, live and direct from Tenconi Towers, as always, discussing what Christian nationalism means and our mission to save Britain and how you can make yourself a part of that history. I am honored and blessed to have a special guest speaker tonight, a man who I've been building a rapport with for some months now, who's becoming increasingly important to our cause and indeed to my cause in Britain. And we'll get to Justin in just a second. But the main theme of tonight, as always, disciples, patriots, and supporters of the faith, is going to be to address the topics that simply aren't addressed frequently enough. And that is, what is going to save Britain? And is it to do with our faith? Is it to do with our religion? Or is it more to do with culture? Is it to do with history and heritage? Without further ado, Justin Kurian joining me from New York. Justin, can you hear me? How are you this afternoon, sir?
I can hear you well, and I'm very happy to be here for episode 20. I always like the number 20.
Episode 20. Well, there we go then, right? So maybe that's luck. I'm not sure. It's approaching. Well, we're middle of Holy Week. I'm starving hungry. I'm not going to lie to you, Justin. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry are you?
Is 10 the hungriest?
10's the hungriest.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's called a 10.1. That's where I am.
So, Justin, for our audience, tell us, how did we find each other? How did we get to know each other? Tell us a bit about who you are, and tell us a little bit about Reclaiming Christendom and where people can find your work.
Sure. Well, Reclaiming Christendom is a ministry we have. We have a large YouTube channel that's growing by the thousands every month. Just look us up on YouTube. ReclaimingChristendom.com is our website, and just look up Reclaiming Christendom. We're a group. I have also Gavin Ashenden, who's part of my team, who was the former pastor to the Queen of England, who stepped down and became a Catholic. So he and I run a lot of the shows. We do a show together, and we are really reaching out to the Western countries mostly, and really emphasizing how important Christianity is for our civilization. We can do everything else, try everything else, but if we lose our Christianity, we lose the life we know, the civilization we know, and it's that simple. There is no other alternative. So if you want to save England, if you want to save the West, you want to save the United States, you simply cannot do it without reclaiming Christendom, and that's where we got that name from. In terms of us,
Thanks be to
we've
God.
met through our common friends. We have some, our circles are not that big. So I think we connected through a few of our common friends. We saw that our missions were very similar. We had a lot of the same views, and the friendship just bloomed from there.
Again, thanks be to God, and thanks so much for being with me tonight, Justin. This is absolutely what happened, Patriots. Justin was recently with Mel Gibson, and he was on the set of the filming. I'm sure a lot of you know about this. Mel Gibson's making a second movie to the Passion, and Justin told me about this, and I said to Justin, I said, listen, Justin, grab Mel and get him to do like a face to camera, like saying, listen, Nick, we understand that you want to take on the communists in Britain and you want to reclaim Christendom. That gets my vote. But I don't think we're quite there yet with the relationship with Mel, are we, Justin?
We're getting there. Mel is doing a fantastic job. He obviously, we all know about the success of the first Passion of the Christ, and now he's filming number 2 and 3 in Italy. They made a fantastic script. Mel's directing. We all know what a brilliant director Mel is, all of his films. A great actor, but an even better director, in my opinion. And I was privileged to go visit him in Rome. He welcomed me on the set. I spent the day with him, and he is just doing a brilliant job. I think the movie will be coming out in about a year. The shooting is, filming should be done pretty soon, and then, of course, the long editing process. But when you see this film he's doing, the work they're doing, it's entirely filmed in Italy. I was just amazed, and I told Mel that. And Mel is doing so much work, evangelizing work through these films. I mean, the first one made hundreds and hundreds of millions and was seen by hundreds of millions of people. So talk about evangelizing. I've always admired Mel for his passion for Christianity and the work he's doing. So it was a great time I spent out there with Mel, and I look forward to those films coming out. That'll be great for Christian.
I think that there's one thing to say about Hollywood for all the attacks Hollywood gets. Let's face it, the horror, gothic, demonology genre, horror genre must be the biggest grossing. I mean, outside of maybe the westerns, I don't know, maybe okay, fine, you could say maybe action movies, but that evangelizes, doesn't it? When people see it's always on our screens. It's always Holy Mother Church that confronts evil. It's always Holy Mother Church that's there to defend against powers of darkness, but Satan. Film after film, year after year, decade after decade. So we can't say that Hollywood is completely against Christianity. As you say, that's a really good point. Mel's done an incredible job of helping to evangelize hundreds of millions of people across the world, and thanks be to God for that. Let's dive straight into some questions that I've got for you, Justin, because for those of you that don't know, Justin invited me onto his podcast, Reclaiming Christendom. We did this a few months ago. It's absolutely fantastic conversation. Please check Reclaiming Christendom out on social media, but especially their YouTube channel. And I was thinking, as an interviewer, what Justin, as an American based in New York, what's his perception, and within his circles, having his finger on the pulse politically, what's the perception, Justin, in America from a religious perspective of Britain? Are we seen as a completely secular state? Are we seen as being colonized by foreign religions thus far? How are we perceived in a religious context?
Well, the answer, unfortunately, is you're not seen very, very good right now. England used to be seen, and UK used to be seen maybe 20 years back and beyond that as a bastion of Christianity to a degree, beautiful cathedrals, wonderful hymns. A lot of evangelizing work over the centuries was done through England. And now the view, first it was seen as post-Christian, maybe about 15 years ago. People, it's become a secular state. But in the last 10 years, really the image is a place that's been colonized by Islam. That's the public opinion right now. I think some of your listeners might recall that when J.D. Vance, our vice president, visited the UK, he made a joke that, and this wasn't entirely in jest, that the UK might be the first country, or England might be the first country, Muslim country, to possess a nuclear bomb. So that was, and that made headlines around the world. But that tells you a little bit about the image of the UK from here. And, also the stories that seep through here in New York and the rest of the United States, your grooming gang scandals that you have, that started to make the news and really, really terrified people when they heard about that. So unfortunately, and also another big thing is the censorship going on there. If you put online posts, Christian online posts, if you speak your mind, we saw that on a list recently. The UK leads in arrests of people for online posts, maybe 20 times ahead of Russia. So when people hear these things, it's right now, Nick, it's not the best opinion of the UK in terms of a religious sense.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got multiple issues in the UK, hence why I do what I do, hence why I fight the way that I fight, hence the team I've got around me, hence the crusade which we have launched, which we're well known for now, both with people who love to hate us, supporters, and our critics as well. It is a crusade. So in there, unpacking it, there's a lot there. Two-tier policing, two-tier justice, a traitorous monarchy, traitorous governments, very liberal, secular, very left-leaning, and even Marxist in orientation. When you look at the attack on masculinity, and you look at the attack on the patriarch, on the attack on Christianity, the attack on freedom of speech, fairness, etc. So there's an awful lot there which goes against us, which is why we fight. But specifically in terms of the religion, most people would argue, I'd say at least 50% of Britain, liberals, atheists, agnostic, they would say it's a secular country. The fact that we're a constitutional monarchy wouldn't mean anything to anyone, doesn't make any difference. They don't want hymns in school, they don't want prayers in school, maybe 50% of the country. And the list goes on and on and on. And there's no public displays of devotion. We all know what's happening during Holy Week in a country like Spain right now, and in places like Italy, Portugal, Greece, for example, other parts of the world. We know what's happening. You have the public display, which is the flex. That's where the government or the church or both, whether it's taxpayer funded or not, say this is going to be a huge, great big display. There's nothing wrong with that at all. This is all about glorifying God. And we will do that, not just hiding away, but we will do it publicly as well. We don't have anything like that in Britain whatsoever. So my concern is with the 50%, and that's my forecast, the 50% of your socially conservative, patriotic people in Britain. They have never had any representation. They've never had any political representation whatsoever. And that's what, now leading my own party, that's what we now find Britain has on the table. It has representation, and a lot of people involve the working class with that. It's all to do with religion. It really is, because religion's been off the table. It's been off the table with friends, with family, in discussion. It's just been off the table for so long. And that's liberal Britain for you. Maybe it's brought up, but it doesn't matter. Maybe people talk about it, but it doesn't matter. And it's just something that's happened along with liberalism. You see how I'm quite fair with my assessment. It's just something that happens with liberalism. So my argument is that Christianity is under attack in Britain, but I make it balanced by saying that we also, due to liberalism and loads of other bits and pieces, we have also forgotten the faith. So we have to, as conservatives, we have to hold our hands up, 101, personal responsibility, and say that yes, there is no question our faith is under attack in Britain, but we are also culpable. The problem you've got with that argument is that we say culture runs downstream from politics. So I want to talk about Christianity in America and this argument that culture runs downstream from politics. Is Christianity, as far as you know, is it state by state, or is it just as a very large country? Is Christianity under attack in any way in America? And if so, how and by whom?
Okay, well, I would say that when you're answering that question, I would divide it into, we have the government and then you have the culture. Now, in terms of the government, here in the United States, we have the First Amendment, which gives the freedom of religion. We have the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, which says the government cannot establish any religion. This prevents, anything happening from the government. Now, you have to remember, when the United States was founded, it was 99.99% Christian. So they never thought about any other religions. They didn't think about Islam. They didn't think about Buddhism. It was more the different sects of Christianity and what would it be. So in general, in the United States, you'll see in the courts, there are battles about religion. For example, Engels, there was a court case in 1962, Engels versus Vitale, which outlawed prayer in public schools. This was in 1962. Before that, in the United States, there was prayer in all the schools. But what happened was, as the non-Christians started to increase, there were more and more challenges, and also secular people challenged it, and they started to win in court some of the cases. There was a recent case, you might have heard about it over there, where there was a bake shop where the owner refused to bake a cake for a same-sex couple for their wedding. He said, it's against my Christian faith. This went to court, and ultimately the court sided with the bake shop owner and said, listen, you can't force someone to go over their religious beliefs just because you want this wedding. So in the world of the courts and things, there's a constant battle in the United States over religion. We have freedom of religion, but these special interest groups and lobbies are attacking Christianity. They're the ones who bring these cases. They're not individuals. They're well funded by George Soros and these other groups, and they're constantly attacking. Now, the Supreme Court is largely conservative, so we're winning a lot of those cases, but it is under attack. Now, the other branch is culture. You mentioned, Nick, earlier, Hollywood. So is Christianity under attack on the unofficial world, in the cultural world? And I would say absolutely yes. If you're a conservative Christian and you want to go into the film industry or the music industry or anything, you're going to be under attack. That's part of the reason why Mel Gibson was under attack. He's a conservative Christian, fantastic person, fantastic filmmaker. And you get pushed out of Hollywood for these type of things. You'll see that in the sports world. You'll see that in the music world. We even have an example with Angel Studios. A lot of your viewers might have seen the series called The Chosen. Angel Studios started from nothing. They couldn't get funding, but because they knew Hollywood wouldn't support them. But they're a great story because they pushed, and eventually they got crowdfunding. And now you see what, this successful show, The Chosen. I think they're on season 5 or 6, and it's booming. But culturally, if you're a Christian in the United States, there is an attack in certain areas. Now, you talk about which areas and stuff. Generally, a lot of your listeners might know the United States is an awfully big place. The center of it tends to be a bit more conservative, while the coasts tend to be a bit more liberal, meaning the Californias or the New Yorks or the Massachusetts on the east and west coast. So it's a big place with different feelings. But as a whole, there are attacks. Now, the tide has changed recently. We have Donald Trump as president, who's a Christian, J.D. Vance, a Catholic, as vice president. So there's a pushback for pushing Christianity back in the public square, which is really the goal, is to get it back into the public square. And as you like to say, bring it back to the heart of government.
Absolutely, I do. So that's where I come in, is as a politician, as party leader, I'm saying Britain has never had anything like this before. It's never been a voter's choice, ever. Now it is. And you may well know, in Britain, new parties on the socially conservative right keep popping up. It's a phenomenon that I don't know, going back 50 years, 70s, 80s, whether this was maybe the Conservative Party hadn't fallen quite so far from grace. But it is a constant problem for the voters, for the patriots, because it confuses them. There's always something new and shiny on the right popping up. And I'm there saying, listen, it's really simple. We have to put our faith first. So voters now have something explicitly Christian, has understood, a political party and leader that has understood the mission to say, forget everything else. You got policies across the board. It's in our 72-page manifesto. Everyone knows what socially conservative principles look like. We must put our faith first. And what I want to say is this. There's a very good breakdown you've given, Justin. It all makes perfect sense. Basically, you're saying, yeah, we're America's a Christian country. You got the Bible Belt. You mentioned that. There's good, there's bad, pros and cons. But ultimately, Christianity is both protected and under attack. Right. Well, we know this because obviously, if you believe in the life, death, passion, resurrection, ascension, if you believe in Christianity, if you are a disciple of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, obviously we're going to grapple with darkness. We're going to grapple with the evil, right? We're going to grapple with the devil. For everything holy, there is something unholy. So we know there's going to be some kind of fight. Where my specialism for the voters and for the patriots is an area of interest for them occurs is to identify how and where. And I give you some examples in Britain. There is no question that there are Islamic teachings and Islamic prayer that are pushed on children. We got at primary school age, nursery school age. Number one, that shouldn't be happening, full stop. And number two, we know that Christian hymns, prayers, devotions, adorations, etc., they aren't compulsory. Well, this is hugely problematic because either Christianity built the West or it didn't. We know in our NHS as well, it's incredibly multicultural and multi-faith. I'm going to give you some examples like Manchester United Football Club that boast and brag all the time that they've got a multi-faith prayer room, you know, with the sign at the airport where someone's kneeling and it clearly looks Islamic. This multi-faith prayer room stuff that you'll see go viral, it does it at least once a year, where these football clubs have these it's multi-faith, but we know that it's for the Muslim players. It's not for the Christians. It's the same with the airports as well, with the multi-faith prayer rooms. And that's the thing about Christians. We all know we can stand, you know, it's biblical. You can lie prostrate. Again, that was ripped by the Islamic faith. That was copied and pasted by the Islamic faith. As you know, you can stand in prayer. This is prayer pose. So without even blinking, I can list quite a few things whereby we see in Britain, there is this deliberate, very, very, very overt pandering to everything bar Christianity. And then there's the communists. And I want to bring you to this point, Justin. I am called and my followers are called. My supporters are called, going back to that 50% in Britain, the patriots, the socially conservative, the religious, whether they're Catholic, Anglican, we're called far right. We're called Nazis. We're called racists and we're called fascists because we embrace what we call true Christianity, which, as you know, and I know you know this, muscular Christianity. So to what extent, my next question, is the bastardization of our faith by teachers, by liberals, by communists, by the state, by politicians, but also, Justin, by fake clergy? To what extent is the bastardization of our faith an area where we can say with utmost certainty that is a huge attack, again, from politicians, from secular liberals, but from fake clergy and all the different denominations I know you're aware of? To what extent can we point at that and say the bastardization of our faith, that we are lukewarm, watered down cowards who are supposed to love thy neighbor, and other than that, shut the hell up? To what extent would you have said that was a massive attack at Christianity?
Well, I would agree. I would agree with you 100%. I don't think there's any more insidious way to attack Christianity than to sneak in, pretend you're a Christian, and water down the faith. I mean, you think of a young man, 18, trying to come into the faith. He walks into a church, and the gospel isn't even mentioned. There's nothing about the Bible. There's nothing about any of this. It's just about social justice causes. This has nothing, this has nothing to do with this. The church, the job of the church in Christianity is to save souls from hell. And to do this, you have to preach the gospel. There's plenty of other places to go in our society to find out about, protesting because you don't like, chickens or put in a cage. You have other places to do that. The most important thing in everybody's life is a good, strong, muscular Christianity. And it's under attack, as you say, from within. You have multiple churches, especially of the Protestant churches, where if you drive by, it happens here in the States, I'm sure over there, all you see are gay flags, the pride flags, BLM flags, and any other social cause. You don't even see a cross. You don't see a mention of the faith. And you don't see that in any other religion. It's only in this liberal Christianity. So I think it's insidious. I feel bad for, the young people who want to try to come and join, and they walk into a church like that. They're not going to last very long in those churches, because when they see that is what's there, they'll walk out. But the problem is some of them never walk back to the faith. So I think it's very, very important that people look at the church and say, unless this is a true Christianity based on the Bible, based on the traditions of the faith that sticks to its principles, I am not interested. And that's why you see a collapse of a lot of these liberal Protestant churches. A lot of them have a lot of money saved in the bank, but because if they didn't, they'd be out of business. The growth in the church, as we can talk about in a bit, is all coming from the conservative end of the church. I say conservative, but we're really just talking about the true church, what it should be. That's where the growth is, and we can talk about many examples of that. But at the end of the day, you said something earlier, which I agree with, is we also have to look at ourselves. That 50% or that percent here, if they claim they're Christians, yes, we can blame other forces coming in, Marxism, Islam, and these are problems. But you can't fight something with nothing. Okay? You have to fight back. These are Marxism and Islam are powerful forces. And you can't sit and watch Netflix and football and drink beers and just say you're against these forces and think they're going to stop. The only way to stop these forces is to get back to the faith in a muscular form. Why do you think the countries in Europe that have resisted Islam, resisted Marxism, are Hungary, Poland? These are the countries that are doing the best job because these are strong Catholic countries that resist it. A liberal secular democracy is powerless against those forces. And that's why what you're doing and what I'm doing is to promote Christianity, because if a muscular Christianity is not promoted to the West, to England, to the United States, it is inevitable that it will fall. You can raise the alarm, tell people about these problems, tell them about Marxism, tell them about Islam. Well, that's great. But if they're just sitting, drinking a beer and watching football games nonstop and ignoring their faith, it's just a matter of time before they fall.
It's inspiring stuff. I want to zone in on one particular thing you said there. Liberal secular democracy has absolutely no armor, no weaponry, no defense against forces like Marxism, like Islamism. And this is exactly why we fight patriots. So all of those nodding at the moment who are watching this and who are going to go and find out more about Justin and about reclaiming Christendom, and these things we're saying, they're resonating with you. I want to segue into the next question now, which is about the resurrection of Christianity in the West, and what type of Christianity, which denomination? There's over 40,000 denominations, whatever that means. Which denomination? What Christianity? What Christianity are we talking about here that is resurrecting? And is that even true, actually? But again, I have to just say, Justin, thanks be to God, because that's really the epicenter of the show tonight for everyone, is what defense do we have against the forces of Marxism, Islamism, and indeed liberalism? Again, you mentioned about drinking a beer, watching Netflix, watching football, or basically just sitting on your backside and not doing anything. Weakness, cowardice, apathy. Again, men who aren't physically fit and ready to fight, combat ready. Man should be a lethal weapon, which should never be deployed unless it's for self-defense, or in the case of Christianity, as we're taught, just war theory. And I want to just also close before we move on to say, you mentioned traditions. You mentioned gospel a lot. You mentioned traditions once or twice. Now, I can vouch for you. I know that you're someone who knows what they're talking about. But it really does. It's such a bugbear for me how Christians, we're so compelled to talk about the gospel and about chapter and verse and about text. And this is obviously 101. I mean, like you, I'm between books every day, and we do the best we can in terms of our study and our ability to evangelize. But the traditions of, there's this thing called a church and the traditions, and I think that it's modernity and progressivism that despises these traditions. I think the modernists, the progressives, the liberals, the seculars, they tend to be more progressive than conservative, than traditional. And as conservatives, we're traditionalists. So I feel like that when we go on now to talk about what exactly is resurrecting within Christianity, and with whom, and with which gender, and with which age group, and with which denomination, we need to start talking more, I think, as Christians, as Catholics, as Christians, looking at it from the unity perspective. We need to start talking more about the importance of the church traditions, because church fathers, going back to the sermons that you mentioned, where young guys walk into these parishes and it's just gay this, abortion that, social justice warring the other. No young male is interested in any of that. He's interested in truth. And that goes for women as well. But speaking as a male, you and I both know that man seeks out truth. And again, we can have women guests on to talk about what's more important when a woman walks into a church, what's she looking for. So let's talk about that revival. First question, is there a Christian revival happening in the West? Do you believe that's the case?
I do. I believe that's the case. And I'm not just saying that to make myself feel better, make anyone feel better. But the bottom line is, let me give you an example. There's a church down in Greenwich Village in Manhattan called St. Joseph's. It's a conservative Catholic church. And if you go there during the masses, it is full with a line out the door of people under 30, men and women. And what they're finding out in the United States, especially, is that the largest new group going to church are people under 30. This is because Gen Z, they call them, approximately. This is because this group has become so disillusioned with the nonsense of our modern culture. Liberals pushed it too far. They pushed it too far, and the people are sick of it. And what they're finding attractive are conservative, real Catholic churches. Catholicism is rising in the United States. Now, don't forget, we have a new pope who's Catholic. He's American. We have a vice president who's Catholic. And the Supreme Court, out of the 9 justices, 6 are Catholic, which is a very high amount. But what we have is a Catholic revival. And when they interview these, I've seen them, I've been to these churches, the young people are looking for a very conservative faith, not a subjective faith, not something where you go in, they say, you can be whoever you want to be. People want some certainty. Sometimes in life, it's nice to have the answer given to you. And that's the beauty of Christianity, where they say, listen, this is right and this is wrong, and now suck it up and live that way. And this is becoming very attractive. I'll give you another example. Recently, a good friend of mine, Father Carlos Martins, has a podcast called The Exorcist Files, one of the biggest in the world, over 10 million downloads. He brought the relic, the arm of St. Jude, brought it straight from the Vatican. He's in charge of the Vatican relics, and went on a tour of the United States. So here you have the arm of one of the 12 apostles. This arm has hugged and touched Jesus, and he brought it on tour. And over 2 million people came to see it. I had it at a church nearby where I am at my parish. And they were saying, oh, you think some people will show up? From 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., thousands of people showed up. It was nonstop. There was never 1 second where someone wasn't in line to touch this arm, this relic. So as you see, there is a huge interest in Christianity, in Catholicism. Now, the media doesn't want you to know that. They'll panic if you know that. But there is a huge undercurrent of interest in this. Why do you think The Exorcist Files has 10 million downloads? Why do you think 2 million people are showing up to this? The job of the liberal media is to suppress this, to hide this, to call it names. But the truth is, there is a huge surge and interest in conservative Catholic Christianity. Those are the churches that are growing. You don't hear of a liberal Lutheran church growing. They say if there's any revival of Christianity in the West, it's going to be a conservative form. Nobody is interested in those liberal churches. They live off their endowments and they're closing like flies. So, I think there is a lot to be positive about. That doesn't mean when you're positive about something, you don't have to work at it. But you also have to appreciate the rise in that. I've heard in England now of the younger Gen Z. This is the first time that 2-to-1, the rate they're going to Catholic churches over Anglican churches. And I don't blame them, because the Catholic churches are dealing with the true faith, where the Anglicans are dealing with social justice causes. So I think there's a lot to be, think positively about. It's encouraging, but we have to keep pushing through things like Reclaiming Christendom and through the amazing work that you're doing. And unless we keep pushing, I mean, I go online and I see you out every other day marching with the cross, marching out there while other people are sitting around doing nothing. So it's people like you who do something. It's time to do something, not sit at home, crack a beer and complain, but to go out and do something. And I think we're starting to see a rise in the positive direction.
Hopefully my mic's come back now, because there was a little sign saying that it wasn't. That was the devil trying to stop me from what I'm about to say, because it's very, very inspiring stuff, Justin. And I do have one final question for you. I just want to come back to that for the audience. That what Justin's saying is something I concur with. I think where I come in is man and woman seek truth, and that's kind of it. They seek truth, and the history teachers, the Marxists, the liberals, the teachers in our schools, the head teachers, the state, the heads of state, the heads of departments, the government, the whole plethora that I've already alluded to. For decades now, there's been such a secular liberal agenda, which has been forced on us by institutions in Britain. I can tell you, Justin, like institutions like the BBC, but also government, the government institutions, our literal parliament, the civil service, our NHS, our school system. There's a plethora of individuals and institutions that have pushed this liberal agenda, and men and women seek out truth. There's a full stop at the end of that. They seek out truth. And when you go down the path of the cross, if you go the way of the cross, and if you seek out God, you will find his only begotten son. You will find Jesus Christ. And there is no going back from that, as you know, as a Catholic. There's no going back. Once you find that, it is truth itself. And the truth's been hidden from us. And it's been hidden from us and it hasn't been taught, going back to the traditions and the early church fathers and our patristics, for example, it's all been hidden from us. And once it's discovered, which of course they can't stop it from being rediscovered or understood. There is a revival happening now, especially with young Gen Z men. Once you discover it, you then go on to evangelize as the martyrs did, as the apostles did. No one dies in the way that they did for a lie. Heaven forbid our youth were taught about the early church fathers, about the disciples, going all the way back, not just nonsense from the Reformation. So that being said, most important question of all, saved till last: should Christians be political? And if Christians should be political, why should Christians be political?
Well, the answer I would say is 100% yes. There is no debate to that. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says that people should be the salt and the light. What do you mean by that is the salt, they need to preserve good things, and in the light, you have to show goodness to the public. How do you do this? Well, one of the big ways you do this is through being political. You have to be in the public eye. You have to be in this. I remember I heard about a town in California that was actually a conservative town. It was inland. It was 90% conservative. But the 10%, the liberal group, they're the ones who ran for office. They're the ones who joined the boards, the library boards, the school boards. They ran for mayor. They ran for the different, for the boards. So now you have a 90% conservative town completely controlled by that 10%. Now, what happens then? all the holiday processions, all the posters, all the things hanging up in the town, all the local laws and ordinances are made by that 10%, by the liberal 10%, because the 90% of conservatives were too lazy, indifferent, or they just didn't know that you have to get involved in politics. And politics at any level. You have to join, for example, libraries here in the United States have a board of people. People like, oh, it always tends to be liberals who join these library boards. There's a lot of power to being the library board. You choose what books are in the library. You choose what posters are in the windows of the library. You choose what guests come to speak 3 times a week in the library. And this is controlled by the liberals. So if you don't join in politics, if you don't run for politics, run for your local boards, run for your local councils, it's game over. Because I'll tell you, the other sides, the other forces we talked about, Marxism, Islam, they're getting involved in politics. They have no problem getting involved in politics. They're not lazy about that, and it's time we just admit that. And as long as they're getting involved in politics, they're going to kick our butt. And that's why you read, oh, Britain or England is, 70%, 50% Christian, and you wonder why we're losing every battle. It's because we're not getting involved in politics. So it is very important that any Christian gets involved at some level in the political sphere, because if they did, can you imagine? We wouldn't be losing any of these battles. So the 2 most important things we said here is, 1, you have to practice a strong, muscular Christianity, not just from your armchair. And number 2, you have to get involved on politics in different levels, and you have to bring your faith to the political sphere. If you do not do that, then you'll have the 6% or the 12% controlling you, and you'll scratch your head as you turn channels on the TV and wonder why. So that's what I would say, absolutely get involved in politics.
You can't put it any better than that, Patriots. Let's just zone in on 1 or 2 things there. And this is exactly what we've been coaching and talking about through vehicles like Turning Point UK as well, thanks be to God, serving as our Chief Operations Officer. So very blessed here in the UK under our fantastic CEO. We've been speaking about this for so very long. The exact example that Justin, in closed circles, in debate forum, at street level, in interviews, etc., the exact example that Justin gave: get the job, get the school governor job, get the board job, get the library job. And conservatives, I've wrestled with this. I mean, it's coming up to 5 years now, as Justin very kindly pointed out, said that he opens up his social media and I'm everywhere. I'm an absolute nuisance. I'm an absolute menace. And I'm only just getting started as well. And it's coming up to 5 years now, thanks be to God, half a decade of being on the front line and bringing it and showcasing to the British public. This is what we've been talking about and wrestling with. What is it about the conservative right, the socially conservative, patriotic, Christian nationalist right, that group, again, that 50%? What is it about us? We love our cars, we love our capitalism, we love our driveways, we love our houses. We just don't want to know. Go to a protest, no thanks. Get involved, like what, with the police and no, we don't want to do that. We want to get married, we want our churches, we want to have, and I've wrestled, we want to have our families and we want to have our communities. And I've wrestled with this. What is it about the right's unwillingness to get involved? Not the extreme right, not the far right, not the neo-Nazis, not whatever you want to call them, but the socially conservative right. If you compare their efforts to the socialists, the Marxists, the communists, especially in places like America, goodness me, and Britain, and it's because of what Justin just said. We don't want to do it. This is just a natural path for us. We know what good looks like. We know what sin looks like. We know what good, bad, evil looks like. We just want to get on with it. So it makes so much sense that Christian conservatives would generally say, I want to earn, provide for my family, and I want to be left alone by the state. It makes so much sense that if you're a Christian, you're not necessarily an activist. if you're a Christian, you kind of want to be left alone to be a Christian. Has evangelizing really been taught? Again, like Justin, this is something that concerns me. There's no global catechism that I know about. There are other things I want to talk to you about, potentially not tonight due to time, but it makes sense to me that the socially conservative right stays in its own bubble, in its own lane, but it's totally unacceptable, because what happens is you give the power, and I want to close by zoning in on another point, as I said, to close. Justin is right. The 90% is giving 10% the power to choose what's read to children, the power to choose who's coming in to speak to the children, the power to choose who's coming in to fill that position, or who's taking that register, or who's having that control over that, which also leads to more control over that. You know, these positions, and we've tried so hard at Turning Point, and obviously now in my capacity as leader, to educate people about the importance of making sure, especially a lot of this comes down to when you become a parent and you're in the school system. I don't think this applies necessarily to as much weight to bachelors, for example, but we can draw parallels. Justin is absolutely correct. For so very long, arguably since the Enlightenment period, since the Second World War, socially conservative Christians, generally speaking, being on the front line, evangelizing and taking those spots that no one wants to take. Guess what? The liberals, the Marxists, the left-wingers, they took them because they understood the power. We call them HR jobs. You know what I'm trying to say? Everybody get the idea? And Justin, back to you for final thoughts on that. My zoning in and my reflections on your points there. Christians 100% must be political. They must be evangelizing, and they must be activists if we want to keep Christianity as the faith of our great nations.
Well, I would agree 100% again. And I think what you're saying is you could kind of understand. Christians built themselves a pretty good life. They have a house, they have a nice driveway. The TV is a big screen TV. It's got a lot of channels, and life is pretty good. To defend conservatives, they tend to work, they have families, they're busy. And I can understand to a degree why, you don't want to get involved. The reality is, though, that every conservative has to understand is that if you don't get involved, everything you cherish and love will eventually disappear. The West will fall. The big screen TV will be taken away. The freedoms and the culture you want to raise your kids in will disappear. So I understand what it's like and saying, I don't want to get involved. I don't mind taking a peek at what Nick's doing in a video or what Justin's doing in a video, but I don't want to get involved. If that's your attitude, then it's only a matter of time, and it's coming faster than we think. We're not talking about generations. We're talking about years before society as we know it collapses. And you lose that big screen TV, that driveway of yours is shattered and cracked, and you lose everything. What we're facing now are civilizational, threats. And the only way to fight it is if the conservatives start getting political, embrace their faith, and get on those boards, run for those positions, and start taking control. It is an embarrassment that often the conservative Christians are a majority of the people, and they're getting their butts kicked by small minority groups who are more active. You can learn some things from liberals and Muslims and other groups. They know how to take those positions. It's a bit humbling sometimes for people, but it's time to learn from them, to learn to be active. Don't just sit there and watch other people do it and say, well, man, that guy's doing a great job. I wouldn't want to. If you don't do it, eventually, sooner than later, you will lose what you so cherish. So I would, really, really say to all of your listeners out there, Nick, everyone should sit this Easter and think about, okay, how can I get involved this year politically? How can I promote the faith more? And how can I do it in a serious way? I think that's a great thing to think about during Easter. And I hope everybody does.
I'm gonna take the next 35 seconds that we've got left. Justin's been so kind with his time for us this evening, Patriots. I'm going to take the next 30 seconds to again zone in on 1 or 2 points there, and then obviously we will call it a day. It's very simple. Going back to what Justin said, you cherish it, you love it, you want it, and you want to protect it. If you don't do those things, if you don't look after it, cherish it, oil it, look after it, clean it, protect it, it's going to rust, it's going to rot, it's going to end up in the trash. Dealer's choice. It's that simple. We're taught this from good parenting, along with thousands of other good items of good parenting. You got to look after what you want to look after. That which you want to look after, you probably want to look after that. Now, if I can change and if I can learn, then anyone can. And I know that every Catholic and every Christian has that story to tell. And that's what it's all about. And the church loves sinners so much. It's all about the conversion of souls. It's all about saving souls. So there is no tomorrow. And it's never too late. And the last thing I want to zone in on is, or two things actually, what Justin said there. We're literally the heavyweights. We're the Mike Tysons in the boxing ring. And this is something I've always said, and I've been told off a few times for saying it, but with the natural social conservatives, we are the majority. We are the masses. We are the Mike Tysons. We're the Lennox Lewises. We're the Evander Holyfields in the boxing ring. We have it all. We just don't go for positions of power. So why do I do what I do? Again, going back to my point about these parties popping up on the right all the time, I have no interest in any of it. I'll talk with any leader on the right. I'll talk about first past the post system and unity and how do we save Britain, but I'm not wrong with my mathematics and my assessment. If Britain turns back, not to Christianity, but to actual Christianity, to the actual Christianity, to muscular Christianity, to the way of the cross, if Britain turns back to our Lord, then from there we can genuinely restart. We can resurrect. We can restart everything, and it links to then other items of activism like taking positions of power. But we're running out of time, so you can fan worship or fanboy or fangirl over the next hero that arrives on the right. UKIP, our Christian crusade won't be going anywhere. Because I heard it all during Nigel Farage's reign at the summer election 24. I heard all about it. Nigel was the guy, Reform was the guy, then he wasn't the guy. I've heard it all before. I will work with anyone politically if our values and ideology aligns. But I know that only returning back to God, only bended knee, bowing of the heads, only Christianity, only Christ can save the mess that we're in. That's how far fallen from grace. And just to add one tiny thing to that as well, Justin, guess what? Everything you've said, everything I've said, you're going to be called a Nazi, guys. You're going to be called a racist. They're going to throw everything at you. If you pick up your cross, they're going to throw absolutely everything at you. So not only must we do these things, but then you're going to be persecuted for truth's sake. You'll be persecuted for righteousness' sake. And the only people that can stand up to fight back, if that's the case, are knights. The only people that can fight back are warriors here in Europe and in the West, just across the West in general. Each country has its own problems. Justin, I know you concur. I want to say a massive thank you to you for being with us this evening. It's Holy Week. This has been holy. This has been blessed. And just please remind the audience where they can find your what your YouTube channel is called and where you want them to go and check out now.
Yeah, everybody, we have a very fast-growing YouTube channel, Reclaiming Christendom. We've got tons of good videos. You'll see one with Nick. We have a great interview with him, and we have a couple shows coming out each week. And we're growing very fast. So go onto YouTube, look up Reclaiming Christendom, and we're there. And Nick, I just want to say it's fantastic to spend some of Holy Week with you. I want to wish you, all of your listeners, a happy Easter, and I look forward to seeing you soon and doing this again.
Justin, God bless you. I'm going to put it in the comment now, but I know you've got to go, so I will stick it in the comments. God bless you. Holy Week is here. Happy Easter in advance, and great to spend time with you also, Justin. Thanks be to God, and peace be with you, my friend.
Same here, and same to all your listeners. God bless.
Right, guys, I'm going to put Reclaiming Christendom into the comment section here, if it'll let me. So it's as it sounds, guys. Reclaiming Christendom. Please do check out Justin's channel there and the work that they are doing. God bless you all, and I will look forward to seeing you next week on Wednesday, hopefully at the usual time of 8 p.m. God bless.
How'd I do?
Fantastic. Huh? You shouldn't. I think you did fantastic.
Right, guys.